Next on our news, things are still dangerous in the Waupaca County community of Waiawega.
At this hour, 6 of the derailed train cars are still burning, and residents who were evacuated still cannot get back to their homes.
A judge takes his judicial opponent to court. I'm Robin Taylor, live at the courthouse. A live report coming up.
And these kids are finding out how important a good breakfast is to learning. Good afternoon, I'm John Billing.
And I'm Julie Feldman. 6 is news at noon.
6 is news. A friend you can count on in Milwaukee. This is 6 is news at noon.
More than 24 hours after a train jumped the tracks in Waiawega, residents of that central Wisconsin town are still not home.
More than 1,600 residents were evacuated yesterday. Today, several of the liquid propane tanks that caught fire are still burning. 6's news reporter Jeff Mirasola joins us from the newsroom with the very latest from Waiawega.
Julie, the National Guard now says it may be several days before residents of Waiawega can get back into their homes. The Guard did get another helicopter up in the air this morning to survey the damage. We want to show you some home video that was taken just minutes after the explosion. Now take note, the time you see on the videotape is wrong. It is an hour fast. Well, that's not the tape that you're seeing right now. That's the aerial tape. But we want to show you this home video tape and listen as Jeff Howard and others describe the scene. Apparently we don't have that tape. They describe that what they've seen, that they believe that it was a train exploded. They take note that people shouldn't be as close as they were. Of course, they were all told to get away, and they set up a 2-mile radius around the crash or the explosion site. Eventually, they did get in there, as we said today, to get the National Guard helicopter to survey the damage. Residents continue to live in the motels, nursing homes, and any other place, friends' houses, before they can get back in there. Some people apparently did try to get back in last night, and they were kept away from the National Guard, still not letting people in. Back to you.
Has the National Guard given them any indication? We're saying it could be days. If you've been abruptly asked to leave your home, you want to know how many days?
Well, that's what some of the folks were saying last night. They had pets that they'd left. They left without any money, so they wanted to try to get back in. But really what they're saying now is because there were 14 cars that had liquid propane, 4 of them burning, 10 of them still potentially could burn and explode. So they just don't know yet at this time.
Better safe than sorry. Thank you. Jeff Mirasola reporting live from the 6's News newsroom. Well, this morning authorities were planning to send a National Guard helicopter over the scene to check the status of the derailment, as Jeff had said.
6's News' Molly Fay is in Waupaca County. She's on the phone to tell us about that part of the story. Molly?
Well, John and Julie, the helicopter just flew over the site, the accident site, at about 10:30 this morning. Some people with the Northeastern Wisconsin Hazardous Material Response Team have just talked to us about their findings. They say at this time, 6 cars are still burning. So what we have now is a total of 4 cars that have burned out. 6 are still burning, and then there's another 4 tanker cars that have propane fuel that they still are waiting to see what will happen with those. As Jeff mentioned, there's no telling when residents will be able to return to their homes. We have some video from earlier of the scene where you can see that this explosion included a very large freight train. There were 81 cars, 37 jumped the tracks. They're doing everything possible right now to get information about the scene. They expect to have helicopters flying over the scene at least once every day, but they will not enter the scene on the ground until the smoke and the fire are out, and even then they're going to wait another 12 hours. Residents are getting impatient, of course, wanting to return to their homes, especially those who have pets. But the Hazardous Materials Response Team member said today he wouldn't send his own family in there. That's how serious it is. One of the things that he said was that a propane car could become airborne, sort of like a missile. That's the kind of danger that we're talking about that still is here in Waiawega, and that's why people have been evacuated from their homes and they still won't be able to go home. Earlier we spoke with someone with the National Guard, and here's what he had to say.
Based on what we expect to find once we've had a chance to inspect the derailment site more closely. Based on that, and again, it's just our expectations, we now believe it will be several days before people will be allowed to return to their homes in Waiawega. This is just not safe to operate any other way.
And again, they say that flames are shooting out into the air about 50 feet. They do have some good news, though, that the fire is not burning at the same severity. It's not as severe a fire. It is getting better rather than worse. But again, 6 cars still burning, and they will not make any attempt to put that fire out until the fire is gone. It's unfortunately for people who live here, John and Julie, it is a wait-and-see attitude right now.
Molly, thanks. Molly Fay on the phone from Waupaca County.
In other news, this morning, a race for Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge entered the courtroom. Incumbent Judge Russell Stamper is seeking an injunction against his challenger, Robert Crawford. 6's News reporter Robin Taylor was in court for this morning's hearing. She joins us now live from the courthouse. Robin, what happened?
Well, Julie, it is very unusual for a judge to take his political opponent to court, but that's what's happening here today. Judge Russell Stamper wants a temporary injunction to pull some campaign ads and literature off the air 2 weeks before the election because he says that that literature and those campaign ads are defamatory. Now, in that campaign literature, challenger Robert Crawford accuses Judge Stamper of violating the Wisconsin Code of Judicial Ethics. Now, in court today, Judge Stamper read a letter that said he had not violated the Code of Ethics. Challenger Crawford says that that doesn't matter. Regardless, he thinks that Code of Ethics has been violated, and he says stopping the ads 2 weeks before the election would violate his right to free speech.
The public interest here, Your Honor, is in knowing about Judge Stamper's conduct off the bench and being able to draw conclusions as to whether Judge Stamper's conduct off the bench renders him unfit to serve.
Now, the hearing is ongoing, and so far a decision has not been made. The problem is that even if Judge Stamper wins, there are 35,000 pieces of literature that have already been distributed, and there are 3 radio ads that have already been on the air accusing the judge of judicial misconduct. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Robin, do you have any specifics on that judicial misconduct issue?
Well, Attorney Crawford has accused Judge Stamper of associating with Michael McGee and the Black Panthers and the Black Militia, and he is bringing up a lot of things that have to do with race as to those violations of judicial misconduct.
We'll be looking for your reports later in the day. Thank you. Robin Taylor reporting live.
A Greendale pharmacist faces state charges involving sex with a minor in exchange for drugs. 6's News reporter Phil Harris is working on that story and has more. Phil?
John, this case charges James Piscatello of Greendale with solicitation to commit first-degree sexual assault of a child. According to this criminal complaint, Piscatello, who is 38 years old, tried to arrange a drugs for sex exchange with a 12-year-old girl. The complaint states that Piscatello had met a prostitute through a local escort service in 1995. According to the complaint, Piscatello made overtures to the prostitute in December regarding his desire to have sex with a young girl. By a young girl, he allegedly stated that he meant someone between 9 and 12 years old. After a series of conversations, the prostitute, who acted as an informant, set up the drugs for sex exchange. Piscatello was arrested at a Milwaukee motel in January after he allegedly gave the informant controlled substances. If convicted of the solicitation charge, Piscatello faces a $10,000 fine and up to 5 years in jail. However, he also faces federal charges of illegal distribution of controlled substances.
Phil Harris, thanks.
Most of us have heard breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, now the Hunger Task Force of Milwaukee is making sure that message really hits home. Today, as part of National Nutrition Month, the task force kicked off School Breakfast Week. The program is aimed at getting kids enrolled in school breakfast programs. Program organizers say eating a square meal in the morning makes you hunger for knowledge, not for breakfast. Better for learning, right?
Right.
Coming up, Scott Steele will be here with our afternoon forecast. Plus, the polls are open. Voters in 10 states are picking the person they want for the Republican presidential nominee. Find out who's ahead.
And Carl Zimmerman has some tips on questions to ask a caregiver. But first, a look at this morning's activity on Wall Street. At 11:30, the Dow Industrial stood at 55.93, down nearly 7 points on trading of 211 million shares. Here are the most active stocks.